Welcome back to the kitchen. Today in Kansas City, it's a bit of a cold day. It's really a preview of what's to come this fall. Perfect day for something warm and comforting, so we'll be having pasta bolognese for dinner tonight. But to go along with that, I'm going to make some focaccia. And a quick note about this recipe, it comes from the Joy of Cooking cookbook, which they actually list their focaccia recipe as pizza dough. So what most people would consider to be a true focaccia, this isn't. It's not going to do a cold ferment for a day or more. But for a quick, simple recipe, it's going to take 2.5 hours from start to finish to make this bread. It's a good product. And anything that you have left over will freeze well, or you can reuse for sandwich bread the next day or later in the week. Plenty of applications for it, whatever you don't use up. So let's get to making some bread. So we'll start by weighing out our ingredients in grams. And I'm going to start with my yeast. Now you'll notice I'm adding it directly to the pot without blooming it first. That's because I know this yeast is still good. And I don't need to do that. Really, the only reason you would need to start your yeast in warm water is if you've had it for a while and you just want to make sure that it's still alive. This, I know it's still good, and so I don't need to do that. So 8 grams of yeast, and then I'll add my sugar, which is going to be 12 grams. There we go. And then I'm going to go in with my flour on top of that. I'm going to need 189. Now you're wondering why not just do cups while you weigh everything out. Well, even if you do cups, the way that you might level off a scoop is going to cause there to be incremental differences, and over a large amount of time it could really throw everything off. So it's just easier to weigh everything out. And if you really get into the whole nerdy aspect of hydration percentages and when you use different flours such as all-purpose versus bread flour, doing the gram measurements is going to be easier in figuring out how much water you need and how much sugar you need down the line. So now that we've got all of our dry ingredients, I'm going to get some tap water and we're going to start mixing this together. So a quick note before I start adding the water, I was way off on my flour on the last section. I'd only added like 1 1/4 of the cups, and I needed 2 more. So I added 284 more grams of of flour to the bowl. So we're all good there. If it looked a little small to you, it's because it was. So I'm going to turn on the mixer. It's going to get a little loud. We're going to start with 303 grams of water. It's warmish water. Comfortable bathtub water is how I've heard it described. And we'll slowly add all of that in so that it incorporates. After that, we're going to go in with 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and then we're going to finish off with 15 grams of kosher salt. And then we'll let that knead and proof. So we'll let that water start to work its way in, and you can tell it already looks like it's a bit dry, which is fine. That's what the olive oil is going to be for. So it gets to a rough dough. We'll add in the olive oil, which you will see it will change how it looks automatically. We'll let that get incorporated. We're going to go in with our salt. And then I'm going to turn up the speed. And now I'm going to let that go for a solid 8 to 10 minutes. So it's been 7 minutes, and as you can see, the dough is largely pulled away from the side of the bowl, but there's still some on the bottom of the bowl that's sticking. And that's perfectly fine, and that's exactly what we want. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. And we'll get the dough hooks off, and then release the dough. So I knock over some olive oil, and we'll actually get it out onto the countertop. Move that out. And we'll see how it feels. It's a little sticky, but it's not terribly bad. So I'm going to get a little bit more flour, and we'll work. So I have some all-purpose flour. I'm going to do a light dusting on the countertop, and then a light dusting on top. We don't want to add too much. We just want to add enough that it gets to what feels right, and you want something that is wet and pliable and a little tacky, but it's not going to stick to your fingers. And as I work in this flour, it's about where we want. So it sits, it's got some spring to it, it doesn't stick to the counter, but it feels like dough. So what I'm going to do is now roll it into a boule, as it's called, I think. I'm going to take my pinkies, stick it up against the counter and the bread, and then using my hands I'm going to pull it towards me, give it a quarter turn, and all we're going to do is just get it into a nice smooth ball. Do that a couple times. As you can see, nice smooth surface, looking good. And so then what I'm going to do is get a bowl, add a little olive oil to it, a paper towel to spread it around so that as this starts to proof, it doesn't stick to the bowl. We'll drop it in there. There's enough oil on there that we can roll it around. And then now we just let that sit and proof for about an hour, hour and a half until it doubles in size. So it's been about an hour and a half. Dough has risen nicely. Now we're just going to take it and put it on this rimmed baking sheet that I've sprayed with non-stick spray and put down a little bit of semolina flour. So take out the dough. It's nice and soft. and just kind of roughly stretch it into the shape. Take it, start to kind of shape it into the form of the baking sheet, trying to keep it similar thickness all the way around. Simple as that. Now we'll let it rest for about another 10 to 15 minutes. It'll proof a little bit more, and then we'll use that time to heat our oven to 400 degrees. Are you my sous chef tonight, Connie Mac?